Welcome along to episode 764 of the Milk Bar. Jason Forrest here with you as ever. And coming up on the show this week, Jamie Jones lets us know about the Tipsy Panto. They're heading to Birmingham, Lichfield, and a number of other Midlands venues through 2024. We're having a bit of a catch up with Tom Reed Wilson as we talk about the Doggy Dictionary and some of those words that can make your four-legged friend suddenly get both excited and concerned. We'll be having a natter with Rod Bissett from the Grange Players, all about their latest production, A Woman in White. And Simon Morykin joins us to let us know all about the implications for self-assessment on HMRC and also what's going on when it comes down to the likes of Etsy and eBay if you're earning from makes that you put together yourself or from sales of items that you have bought to sell on for profit. That's all on the way on the show this week.
Welcome to the Milk Bar. 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 Welcome to the Milk Bar.
The Woman in White is the latest offering from the Grange Players over at the Grange Playhouse. Rod Bissett is here to tell me quite what's going on this March. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Jason. How about yourself?
Oh, all good, and looking forward to finding out more about your latest show. What do we have in store this time?
Well, this one is a bit of an onion in that we've got layers to this one.
Ooh.
You see, at first sight, this is a period drama.
Mm-hmm.
It's got your usual big stately home. It's got your dashing hero. It's got your lovely woman. And eventually, it's a will they, won't they get together thing.
Right.
But this is actually been called the first ever detective story.
Mm-hmm.
Because behind the whole scenes is a mystery that is ongoing that the heroes are trying to uncover and right some rather dastardly wrongs.
Well, I mean, this itself comes from the novel by Wilkie Collins, written by Constance Cox. So this is a story that existed before it became a play. And
Yes.
then what period was this all coming from?
So this is all coming from the sort of Victorian period. Like you say, this comes from an original story. When the story was first published, it was actually done as a serial.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a come back next week and find out the next part.
Because the Dickens used to do a lot of that sort of stuff back in Victorian times, so it was a theme that happened in the press at the time.
Oh, absolutely, and it's nice that you mentioned Dickens because actually the author of The Woman in White was a friend of Dickens.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I say, the story when published came out every few weeks. People were left with cliffhangers and they desperately wanted to know what happened next. What was the resolution to this story? And the great thing with the play now is all those cliffhangers are still in there. Very little's actually been changed for the play audience.
Mm-hmm. So it's a chance to every time you could have probably about 5 intervals in this, and couldn't you? With all of those moments, but obviously not the case. But it does mean that scene changes are, as you say, rather dramatic. And how does the scene work? Because you mentioned the stately home. Are we seeing different places, or is it somewhere that's set around just the one location?
We are set purely in the drawing room of Limmeridge Hall, where we're introduced to our main cast of characters, anecdotes are given, strange occurrences are mentioned, and it's from there that the whole mystery unfolds and eventually concludes.
So a chance to learn about the characters as you go along. And how many people do we meet on stage?
We meet about 10 or so people, which is actually going to be the first mystery that our audiences are going to find out is how many cast is actually in this one, because I'll be honest, I can't remember there's that many of us. But we are introduced first to Walter Hartright, who is he's a drawing teacher, and he's been employed by the house to basically entertain the two young ladies of the house and give them something to do over the summer. Just in passing, Walter happens to just mention a rather strange occurrence where he was out for the evening and came across a rather strange woman dressed all in white.
Ooh.
And she was warning him about certain people that he at that point didn't know. But she mentions Limmeridge Hall. He turns up to Limmeridge Hall and doesn't think much of it until he's introduced to young Laura Fairley, one of his pupils, and he's remarked about how similar Laura and the woman in white look. And it is from there then that he seeks to solve the mystery and put right what's going wrong in terms of people getting used, people being maltreated, marriage of conveniences are happening. It's a whole hornet's nest that he unwittingly uncovers just after taking on a summer job.
So that's going to be our cliffhanger. So we don't know any more than that at this point, but you set the scene rather nicely there. So we can,
So.
yeah, we've got people intrigued, I can tell. What is your part in all of this?
I am Walter Hartwright. I am the drawing teacher. And so that will hopefully give audiences another reason to come down, because who wouldn't want to see this on stage?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost a requirement, isn't it? So your fan club will be there, selling badges and T-shirts probably on the way out. But they do T-shirts these days, aren't they? So that'll be good fun. But no, it sounds like an intriguing one, but it's chilling. But has some lighter moments too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the lovely thing with this one is with the whole cast that you've got, with all the different characters, you have your rather touching moments, you've got your comedic moments, you've got your darker, more dastardly moments. There really is in this one absolutely something for everyone.
So worth getting yourself along to. So it's all taking place at the Grange Players. Now, this is just next to the Arboretum over in Walsall, isn't it?
Absolutely. We are just on the Broadway North, just next door to the Arboretum. You cannot miss us unless you're driving with your eyes shut.
And it's not advised that. I've been there, done that. Don't do it again. So you get hold of the box office on 07909 036 835. That's 07909 036 835. Or ticketsource.co.uk/the-Grange-Players-Ltd. And you can get yourself along, grab your tickets, £12 a ticket. It's the 14th through to the 23rd of March. It is a 7:30 curtain up. And who knows what happens by the time that curtain comes down. It'll be intriguing. There'll be mystery. There'll be a stately home to visit. It's almost like having a National Trust weekend, but only on stage, with probably more mystery and the occasional woman in white wandering past as well.
Absolutely. We've got the whole thing. And if that's not enough, if our audiences come on a Friday or a Saturday night, I will guarantee them a late night bar as well.
There you go. What more could you ask for? A nice night out, chill out, relax in the theatre after the show, and have a great time watching the work of the Grange Players. Well, Rod, keep up the good work, break a leg, and we look forward to this production and hearing more about what you have in the programme in the not too distant future.
Looking forward to it, Jason.
Now, when it comes to our pets, there's lots of words that surround the wonderful world that we live in with them. Whether it's walkies and treats, they know those words, even if they can't talk back to us. Somebody who's going to help them communicate, I'm absolutely sure, is celebrity lexicologist Tom Reed Wilson and pet plan vet Dr. Brian Faulkner. Good afternoon to you both.
Hello, Jason. Lovely to see you.
Good to see you both. And now, first of all, Tom, you often share some words and their meanings online. Some of them are just a little bit fruity. But when it comes to the world of our pets, there's all sorts of language that they follow, isn't there?
Yes, no fruity language. Not in the case of our doggy dictionary, anyway. It's thoroughly PG, I assure you. But yes, today I am a petomologist, which is a wonderful portmanteau of pet and etymology, and it's really inspired by how inventive pet owners have been to galvanize, motivate, inspire their various animals to get to the vets, because I think sometimes you utter the V word and those antennae shoot up and it is a little bit anxiety inducing. And of course, language is a tremendous tool to take the sting out of that whole experience. So whether it's a code word for the vet, like Doctor or Dr. Barker, or a bespoke one like the lovely vet that flanks me, Dr. Brian Faulkner, where he's known to some of his animals as Uncle Brian, and it's wonderfully bespoke, that sort of familiarity. Or even the things, as you say, that put wings on their paws, like treats or like walkies, that have their own wonderful synonyms, like scrannules in the north of England, using the northern word scran for food, or the wonderfully onomatopoeic pitter-patter. All of these things can spirit an animal along, I think.
It's all about the noises they hear, because it is only the same as barking to each other when it comes to dogs. I'm sure they understand some of that, don't they?
Oh, that's absolutely true. And we found with the Doggy Dictionary, all of which is on the Pet Plan website, that there is a kind of lyricism to a lot of the words that are included. And even if it's not a kind of a direct intellectual comprehension, there is a joy in the music of certain words which really do put wings on their paws.
Well, Uncle Brian, aka Pet Plan Vet.
Sorry, Brian, I'm so sorry.
When you are dealing with the pets, I mean, the things and noises that you can make to keep them calm too.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about the wider environment within the practice, sometimes just the smells and, of course, the degree of light and the noise of the telephone and just the hustle and bustle can be very, very disruptive for pets being there. And then the individual interactions, of course. I'm quite tall, so therefore I spend a lot of time getting down to their height to stop being intimidating for them and speaking to them in a gentle way, making sure that you approach them in a way that's not intimidating, but just being friendly and attractive to them to take away that fear, realizing that most dogs, at least initially, coming in through the doors have got some sort of anxiety. So really working hard to try and make them running towards you and scratching the practice door to get in.
Which they do in Brian's case.
They like it, yeah?
Well, not all of them, of course, but we work hard at trying to do it. And it's not just me, it's my reception team. And many veterinary practices will do this because we know it's like us going to the dentist. It's never really that pleasant. So we want to make them really enjoy it. So as Tom was saying, use of language, but also use of body language around that, as well as just taking your time, being patient.
Never been tempted to dress up as a chihuahua so that they're on their level correctly?
Well, the odd time, but that's a whole other different podcast.
We won't go there.
But there really is physical evidence in Brian's case of how anxious they are to meet him, or the dogs that have been before, isn't there, Brian?
Well, one of the things I point out, and I love when I go into my day, on the outside of the practice door, one of the first jobs I have to do is actually wipe away the paw prints from the previous day, where dogs literally have been pawing at the door to get in. Not all of them, of course, but it's a great sign, and we take a lot of effort to make that happen.
Yeah, as long as it's not on the other side trying to get out.
That's worse.
Yes,
that's worse.
yes.
But Tom, with all these words and the Doggy Dictionary, it must have been great fun putting it together. But there's some interesting things there. I mean, there's the likes of T&T. Tell us a bit about that
yes.
one.
This is one of my favorites, actually. This is post-vet, and what we have done with the Doggy Dictionary is we've run the gamut of the whole experience, from trying to incentivize the animal initially right to the administering of whatever Brian might have given the animal to take. And so T&T is an initialization of tablet and treat. So that you can take them together. And of course, it's slightly reminiscent of a G&T, and it's really fun to say.
So this is how we get you to take your antibiotics when you need them.
Exactly.
Combine it with the GNT. But no, things I like about all these words, though, there's normally quite a sharp sound and then a relaxing one straight afterwards. So the T and T, and then boo boo, as with the way to refer to an injury.
They're all things that you can half sing. Moon moon is one that is ubiquitous. I learned this in the research for calming an animal. And you can tell straight away. I mean, it's a little bit like sitting next to Brian, because his vocal tone, his larynx identity is so gentle and soothing and musical. And you can imagine that calming an animal. And it's true with these words too. lend themselves to being musicalized in a way.
So almost singing it, certainly not quite howling it, because that would probably set off your four-legged friend.
Yes, not
But
an ululation. No, we don't want that.
but again, Brian, when you've got someone who is a nervous patient, are they sometimes more nervous when their mom and dad are with them rather than when they're just with you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a lot of dogs behave more relaxed when we do take them away from their owners. That was interesting during COVID when we had to have that social distancing and we used to take pets away to be able to work with them. And I would say a lot of them actually relaxed because a lot of animals want to trust the person they're with. And obviously they defer and default to their owners. And sometimes there's that confusion of where they are. But when we take them away, they actually relax with us. But not all of them. Some of them do become more anxious. But I would say about 80% of them. So as Tom has been talking about, there's the vocal language, but a big element is the body language. And we need to send a message that to the pet to say, it's okay. There's nothing to be frightened here. It's like a kid. Sending that message of reassurance. Sometimes in our desperate attempts to reassure them and make them feel better, we almost send a message subconsciously to say, actually, maybe there is something to worry about here. So we try and work on that to say, it's okay, you're in no danger.
But with the parents or the owners being away from them, at least I suppose they're not thinking that any harm that's come to them because of the nature of what you need to do to make them better is also a threat to their owner as well. And taking the owner away, I should think, may ease that concern for the dog.
Yeah, we disassociate that. So therefore, they blame Uncle Brian rather than blame Mum and Dad.
It's the best way of doing it. And again, Tom, I mean, have you got a dog? Do you regularly have conversations with four-legged friends?
I'm what you call a Poppins of pets, really, because I'm a freelancer and because I'm single, I'm the first port of call for all my chums with dogs. So I'm frequently dog sitting. And there's a beagle in my life that I spend an awful lot of time with and have even been to the vets with. So yes, I love it. I love it.
So it's a great way of looking after your animals. Of course,
I'll say.
And so they've been able to have the conversation too. But the important thing is we make sure we have cover for when they need it. And that's a big part of making sure they get treated quickly. How do we find out more about that side of things so everyone can have an Uncle Brian?
Well, on Petplan's website, there is the Doggy Dictionary. It's there. There's lots of information on the Petplan website, as well as the YouTube channel, which gives you tips and tactics about how to make your dog less anxious during this veterinary visit.
And Tom, have any of them ever followed your accent when you've been conversing with these dogs?
Well, I sing to them a lot, and I find that they do get quite imitative when you sing. Sometimes their ululation sort of matches the notes.
Before you know it, we'll have the next big hit record on our hands, and Tom will be there with a dog orchestra, and Brian looking after the healthcare. So I think that sounds
From
like
your
an excellent
lips
rider.
to someone's ears.
It could happen. There'll be a tour. Tom Reed-Wilson, celebrity lexicologist, and Dr. Brian Faulkner, pet vet from Petplan. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
The team behind the Tipsy Panto are once more heading for the bar and getting themselves on stage for a bit of a giggle. To tell us more about what's going on, I'm joined now by Jamie Jones. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, and I hope we find you well at the moment, at least.
Well, I'm not tipsy, which is quite good.
Yes. It helps for the interview process.
Very well, thank you.
Now, obviously,
Yes.
it's back for a new year, and this year's Jack and the Beanstalk, a 2024 UK tour.
So we've not long opened the show. As I say, it's going like all over the UK. But sort of local to us, we're doing Birmingham at the Crescent Theatre on the 16th and 17th of February. And then we go forward a couple of months, and then we're in Lichfield on the 18th of May. And there's still a fair few tickets left for that, so that's fairly local.
And you're stopping up in Redditch along the way as well, aren't you?
That's on the 1st and 2nd of March. So there's lots of sort of local dates for us this year, which is great because I rarely get to perform locally. I mean, the amount of work that I do that's all over the UK, I'm sure, the local council have a barring clause on me performing within like 40 miles of my home. But yes, we've got loads of local dates, which is really nice because everybody always goes, oh, when can we come and see you? And there's loads of dates now, so there's no excuse for people to book their tickets, I suppose.
Yep, so they can get along, have a good time. You've got Bridal Hill
Yeah,
in September as well, and
yeah.
hopefully you're also still faring fairly well by then, because this panto is unusual. And as much as although we don't condone excessive drinking, the entire cast end up a little squiffy by the end of the night.
Yeah, just a little bit. So the way that this Tipsy Panto works is we're doing Jack and the Beanstalk. I don't know if we've mentioned it. Jack and the Beanstalk, and it's the Tipsy version. They vote via social media for who they want to get a little bit squiffy. Usually there's a choice of three people. So it's usually either myself, the villain, or the comic who's Jack Trott in the thing. So you message us via Messenger, and we collate all the votes. And then during the show, it's announced live who gets a little bit tipsy. Sometimes it's one of us, sometimes it's a couple of us, sometimes it's, it just all depends on the show that day. It depends on the audience. But whoever you vote for, you're in for such a great night, because it's not just us, being drunk on stage. I would say this, we're plugging it. It's a really great show with loads of heart, great songs, great dancing, like great scenery. We've got great special effects in it as well. We've got like a huge giant as well, which is great. A beanstalk that grows in front of your eyes. There's loads of things like Daisy the cow. So it's like, although we're touring, it's not a very tourable production because it's quite a huge show. But it's great. But it's dead funny. The audience has so far been loving it. We've been getting standing ovations wherever we go. And it's just great. And, if you want a laugh, come and see us. Even if you don't like Panto, we take the mickey out of Panto. So it's a Panto for people that don't like Panto also. But it's also a Panto for people that love Panto. So, we're ticking all the boxes. And I think it's great. I would say that because I'm in it.
But there's a reason that you were invited back after all the fun you helped create last year as well.
Yeah, so last year we did Aladdin and I played Widow Twankey. I only did half of that tour, so there's another guy that did the first half. But this year they've asked me back for the full season. I think it's only because I'm cheap. But but it's great. We get to see all these places in the UK. We get to go to places that you rarely get to go to. So far we opened in Chippenham a couple of weekends ago. Then we did this last week, we did Middlesbrough, Stoke, and then Swansea Grand, which was lovely. So we're literally going from one end of the country to the other. So there's a lot of driving involved, but it's great.
It's the Crescent in Birmingham. That's the 16th and 17th. It's a Friday and a Saturday. And obviously you won't be driving home if you're selected as the other person who's getting tipsy on stage, will you?
No, we're put up in hotels, which is all right. We've got it's very, very carefully planned. So we have like designated drivers that drive us around. Obviously, there's only one or two of us that get a bit drunk, but we have designated drivers that drive us to the hotels. It's all very safe, but it's also nice because in Birmingham we're doing 2 dates, which is the 16th and the 17th. So it gives us that bit more freedom to probably go a bit extra further because we're not doing a get out on the 16th. Go out after the show, but it's great. Again, a great theatre. Last time I haven't done the Tipsy Panto here, but I've done other shows at Birmingham. Audiences are great, and it's a great place to be in. Just a big city. There's so much, and it has such a rich history of Panto as well with the Birmingham Hippodrome, and you find the show works really well in places that Panto thrives. So like Birmingham, where they've got one of the biggest in the country, it works really well when we come to Birmingham because they know the shtick of it all. But yeah, so very much looking forward to Birmingham, and it's fairly close to home. And I think there's still a fair few tickets left for that. So you can book them at, I'm going to read this off the poster now, crescent-theatre.co.uk. There you go. Okay,
look out for the date. Now, you'll find it's not labelled as Tipsy Panto in there. You're looking for Jack of the Beanstalk, though. 16 plus.
Oh, is it not?
It's not called Tipsy,
sorry.
is it? It's got the P word on it.
Yes, P word, registered trademark, but that's what we call it anyway, amongst many other things. But obviously, for the purposes of this, we'll keep it clean.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't even spell it for you, but if you want to find him on the socials, it's the P word up Panto. You can work it out from there. So have a brilliant time with it. Obviously, one thing we needed to do is obviously you should always drink responsibly. You guys are professionals, and you are very closely monitored to make sure you're looked after during this, aren't you?
Yes, we're professional drinkers. So as opposed to amateur drinkers, which is completely different.
Yeah, that's the way it
But yeah, it's all done very responsibly, but everybody has a great time in the process of doing it.
Well, do
So
check it out. All those venues. Say Birmingham is the next one with ticket availability, 16th and 17th of February. You've got Redditch on the 1st and 2nd of March. Then we're looking forward to the Lichfield date on the 18th of May. And then you're over at Briley Hill Civic Hall on the 27th of September. So loads of chances to see the madness and sort of taking place with Jack and the Beanstalk as the Panto, where some of the cast at least, get a little squiffy during the show. Jamie Jones, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to catching up again soon.
You too, Jason. I'll speak to you soon.
Now, the self-assessment tax deadline has passed, which means, hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody who needs to has got their paperwork in. And to tell us more around what the next stage is and about some of the other issues surrounding our tax, I'm joined now by Simon Morykin. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good, Jason. How are you?
I'm good too, thank you. Now, you work within HMRC and as part of the team trying to make sure we get the message across, because tax itself is obviously something we're all subject to, even royalty, and we need to make sure that we do fill all our forms in as required. And it was a biggie towards the end of January, because that's everybody who's got a self-assessment form that had to be done in time.
That's right. The 31st of January every year comes around, and many people leave it to last minute. I think it's just human nature. I had a friend of mine texting me on the 31st of Jan saying he couldn't log in because he had a password issue. And I said, why have you left it till the last minute? Now, I've been self-employed in the past, and I was one of these annoying people that likes to get it sorted earlier on in the year. So around summertime, I used to find was the best time that I could get everything together and do it nice and early. But yeah, January 31st is always the deadline. If you go past that, then you're looking at fines and penalties for not getting the data back to us in time and for not paying what you owe. But if you can get organised, there are advantages, to filing early. If you're owed money back, you know what you're going to be paying, so you can budget, you can get more organised. Plus, you beat the rush. And I always say to people, look, if your internet connection, your broadband goes down at the end of January and you're leaving it till the last minute, it's always just easier and more organised, I think, to start it earlier on in the year. But there were a record-breaking 11.5 million people, taxpayers, who submitted their self-assessment tax returns in time for that deadline. And if you're talking, Jason, about the people who leave it last minute, I can tell you in that final hour, 11 p.m. till 11:59 p.m. on the 31st of January, we saw almost 33,000 people ping off their returns in that final hour. They must handle stress a lot differently than I do.
Well, it is when they're, and the thing is, January this year, you're looking at your tax return for 22-23. So it's what finished in April 2023. So you've had plenty of time to get it done. And it is about knowing what funds you need to be able to pay that bill as well. Because I assume most people will have a tax account where they put their funds away and hopefully earn a bit of interest on it whilst it's waiting to go its merry way to HMRC. So, it's not all bad, but it is important to get these things sorted out. And if anybody has realised that they completely forgot, what do they do now? I suppose it's always better to hold your hand up first rather than get a letter later.
Absolutely right. We always say, just let us know, get in touch. I used the example in January of those people who are worried that they can't pay, so they might dig their head in the sand and worry about it and stress. That's not the way to do it. Get in touch with us. We are approachable. We want to help. If the money that you owe is under £30,000 and you're struggling to pay that, you can actually set up a time to pay arrangement on gov.uk. So there is an option there, and we only work out what you can afford. We're never going to take the roof off from over your heads. We'll work with you to get it solved. So as you're saying, Jason, if you're worried about it and you've suddenly realised, oops, I should have filed, I haven't, just get in touch with us straight away, and we'll work with you to make sure that any money you owe or any fines that maybe you've incurred, that we can work with you to make sure you can pay it, but in an affordable way. And we'll look at your incomings, your outgoings, and we'll work out what you can afford to pay to get back on track. But you're absolutely right. The key thing is to get in touch with us and let us know about it, because then what we can start to do is we can start to help you. And it's always better if you come to us first rather than us coming to you.
And with the number of scams that are around out there as well, it's vitally important that you're the one contact the tax office, because in a moment or two's time, I'm going to play you a couple of the dodgy calls that people have been getting. And if the tax office ever has cause to contact you, it'll normally be by letter first, won't it?
Yeah, we use various methods of communication, but the key way of checking, Jason, is actually you can go on gov.uk, search phishing and scamming. That's phishing with a PH, not with your rod and bait. On gov.uk, and what we do is we publish online the letters or the texts or the emails that we're sending out to people, so you can cross-reference it. If you had a letter out of the blue and you think, I wasn't expecting this, you can check it on gov.uk. What you can also do is check that all the contact details are genuine, because you might find there's a phone number on there. Well, you can look at that and cross-reference it with our HMRC numbers on gov.uk. The important thing is, when it comes to scammers, is that they are clever people and they know when deadlines are. So they know when students are starting at uni and perhaps getting their first part-time job. So they will think, oh, they might have registered for, PAYE, or they might be registering, looking at national minimum wage. So they will drop emails into your inbox around those times, so that you think, oh yeah, I've just started work, I need to click on this, it must be genuine. It's not always the case. Scammers are clever. They use the deadline of the 31st of January. We find now that a lot of scammers will be pushing out emails to say, oh, you can get a tax refund. And if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. In the last year, through to December, we actually reported almost 30,000 malicious websites to the internet service providers. We get those taken down. Obviously, it's happening all the time, so you've just got to be very careful. And our top tips are to protect your information. Remember that criminals are cunning. Take a moment to think before you part with your money or your information, because remember, they might be after your info, like your government gateway. You don't share that with anyone, not even if you've got an accountant, not even with them. They get their own login. Treat that like your bank detail. Use strong and different passwords on all your accounts, and recognise and cross-reference it on gov.uk. You can actually forward suspicious items. If you think that an email is phishing, you can send that to us and help us fight against these scammers. It's phishing at hmrc.gov.uk if you want to do that. But the key thing is, I think, Jason, if there's a time pressure on there of, you need to correct this with us right now, or you get one of the voicemails that you might be playing as an example piece of audio.
We'll do that in a sec.
Your house is under surveillance. We don't leave voicemails for you like that. That doesn't happen. We get in touch with you before it reaches that point. So never be pressurized into giving away your information or clicking on a link. Double check it. If you're not comfortable checking it yourself, ask a friend, a relative, or get in touch with us and we can help you with that.
Yeah, so these are the two examples, of course. There are many more out there, but these two electronic people are not real and are not from HMRC.
This is Officer Dennis Gray from HM Revenue and Customs. The hotline to my division is 0114-700-1553. I repeat, it is 0114-700-1553. Do not disregard this message and call us back. If you do not call us back, or we do not hear from your solicitor, either, then get ready to face the legal consequences. Goodbye, and take care.
Call is to inform you that there is a tax fraud case registered under your name. You have to press 1 to get connected to the officer of HMRC. If in case you don't press 1 and your call is not connected to us, then the warrant will be issued under your name straight away and you will get arrested shortly.
So those are some of the things we need to listen out for. If someone's telling you to press a button to avoid being arrested, that isn't how the HMRC work, is it?
No, it's not at all. No, we send genuine letters through the post. We do email and we do text as well. We don't use WhatsApp, so be careful of that one. All the advice, and it's a really good read actually, so you can be aware of what you can do to protect yourself, is on gov.uk. If you search for phishing and scams, just don't rush into anything. Take your time. Check with HMRC scam advice on gov.uk, and make relatives aware of it. If you have someone elderly, vulnerable in your family, make sure they're aware as well, because these scammers, they're cunning people.
Absolutely. You nearly said what we really think of them then, didn't we? But there we go. So, as it is, there's obviously a lot else going on in the world of tax. And one thing that's shown up recently has been the fact that if you are a maker on the likes of eBay or Etsy, or any of the selling sites out there, if you're creating and selling as if it were a small business, or if you're selling your own old unused property on there, there are tax rules which are now being enforced more rigorously. As since the 1st of January, HMRC will, as a matter of course, have people's sales reports given to them.
Yeah, so it's not actually changing the tax system, but what has changed is rather than us being able to ask the online marketplaces for information, instead they just send them to us by default every year. So that started on the 1st of January this year, which is why it became a story on social media and in the media. And some of the articles led people to believe that if you're having a clear out and you're getting rid of stuff in your loft or in your garage, because our garage is a mess. There's so much in there. A lot of it will probably just bin, but some things like an old pushchair we have will probably stick on a marketplace. Now, if you're getting rid of your old junk and you're having a clear out and you're selling things for less than you bought them for, you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to tell us about it. However, if you set up an online business and you're buying things with the intention to sell them and make a profit and make money on it. So I spoke to one gentleman on a podcast the other week who him and his partner have a business set up. They did it through lockdown. It's doing really well now. They buy like cups and mugs and they brand them and personalize them and sell them on and make a profit. That's when you're trading. That's when it becomes a business. And if you're making over £1,000 a year from something, then that's when you need to tell us about it. But if you're not making a profit and you're just getting rid of junk in your loft for far less than you bought it for, you don't need to worry about it at all.
Well, good with this, there are things online though. It says that the £1,000 that makes sense. If it's a mini hobby, then it's not a business. As soon as it hits that £1,000 proceeds, then that's the point at which it makes sense that you can do it. But there's comments online like about £6,000 worth of your own goods. If you were to sell a car for £7,000, would you have to tell HMRC?
No, not if you're getting rid of your car, because you're probably selling it for less than you bought it for, so you're not going into a profit. If you bought something and it's and we all dream of being in this situation, I think you've bought this old painting and it's been sat in your garage for 10 years and you come to have a clear out and it turns out that this is a really ancient piece of art and it's worth an absolute fortune, then if you sell it a personal possession for more than £6,000 than you bought it for, then you're likely to have to pay capital gains tax on that. So it could be a rare item and it's massively, you go on these TV shows and they say, well, actually it's worth a fortune. If it's gone over that £6,000 mark in value, then that's when you might be looking at paying capital gains tax on that. If you find yourself in that situation, there's lots of information on gov.uk for capital gains tax. But your car, it's probably had the mileage has gone up on it, the value of it's gone down. That's not where that £6,000 number has come from.
Mm-hmm. So I say, if you were lucky enough again to discover it's a classic car, then that again would be something to look at, but only from the capital gains tax point of view. It's not something which falls under your normal 12,000 some odd personal allowance, whatever it happens to be at the moment.
That's it. 12,570 is everyone's tax-free allowance, pretty much. Some people have different allowances depending on their circumstance, obviously. But yeah, if it is something that's gone up in value, then that's when you're looking at capital gains tax. Another example of that is if you're collecting rare memorabilia, like maybe you've got an impressive sports memorabilia collection, and I don't know, because I'm not a big sport fan, but if you've got some sort of scarf or I don't know, rare football top, and that's gone up in a lot of money then, but it's probably quite rare you'd find yourself in that situation. The majority of people who are getting rid of old stuff from the garage that has, you bought a pram for 200 quid, it's now worth 80 quid, which is where I find myself. You don't need to worry about that.
But a Pokemon card that you picked up from a pack that's suddenly worth £800, that's again, it falls under the limit. But if it was worth 10 grand, then you need to talk.
Exactly that. Yeah, it's those big increases that you're talking about. What actually happens with these online marketplaces is by default, if someone's made over 30 transactions in a year, or they've made over €2,000, and it's in euros because several countries are involved in it, you'll automatically go on that spreadsheet and they'll send it off to HMRC and you get a copy of that data yourself. Now, it might be the case that it is all personal stuff and there's nothing to worry about. But it's actually for those businesses that are trading online and aren't have not got a level playing field with traditional businesses on the high street who are properly doing their accounts. So this is to make sure it's a more fair system, that if you're trading online as a business, then you're doing the same as traditional businesses need to.
But as you mentioned, I mean, during lockdown, many people will have sort of had a bit of a sideline as an extra income. And if that is the case, so if say somebody was picking something up from an antique shop and selling it, they bought it for 50 quid, sell it for 100 quid. Cumulatively, at what point would anything happen? If they're going over what sort of value, when do they need to ask, hang on, should I be doing self-assessment here?
So the minute you're making over £1,000 a year on something, that's when you need to let us know about it. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pay tax, because that all depends on the rest of your financial circumstance. You might be out of work. It might be a little hobby. You're not earning PAYE 12,570 a year allowance. So if it's over £1,000 a year, that's when you need to start letting us know about it through self-assessment. There's actually a little checker online on gov.uk. If you search check if you need to file a self-assessment, it will ask you all these different questions of what are you making, where's it coming from, have you got this, have you got that. It's not reporting you don't put any information in. It's just a little guide, a tool that will help you figure out whether you need to file your self-assessment.
So for anybody who is just hearing about this and thinking, hang on, they realize they have been doing this but didn't realize they needed to do anything about it, the 1st of January information and change where the information becomes available, is that only looking forward? So it happens from the 1st of January, that automatically goes across, or is there some historic level to it as well? So do they need to panic, hang on, what did I spend last year, and start adding everything up?
Well, the key thing is, if you suddenly realise that, hold on a minute, I've been earning all this money from a business and it's gone well over that £1,000 a year, and you've been doing that for the past few years, then that's definitely the time to get in touch and tell us about it. And like I said before, we'll work with you and we'll figure out what we need to do to get everything balanced out and up to date. If you've started trading now and you thought, okay, new year, this is going to be a new business, the online selling platforms from the 1st of January this year, 2024, will by next year, 1st of January 2025, we'll be sending that information over to us. So if you started trading this year, we'll be getting that information. And again, if you find it's going over £1,000 a year that you're making from something, then that's when you need to tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's £1,000 profit.
It's not necessarily profit. It's if you're making over £1,000 a year from something.
Right.
That's when you need to tell us about it. But for the majority of people, if you're worried about the online marketplaces and what you're selling, if it's old tat you're getting rid of, nothing's changed. You don't need to worry about it.
So yeah, if you're buying new stuff, and if you are buying new stuff, again, like the pottery company, they have receipts for everything, so they would only be taxed on the amount of profit that they've made, and they can take into account the actual costs of them doing the job. They are a small business, so they would put together an account set up the same way as any business would, with the likes of heating, light, all that sort of stuff, which becomes part of the costs of bringing that product to the marketplace.
That's exactly it, yeah, and that's what that rule is there for. So that once you're making that money from something, we don't know about it. You've not paid tax on it as you've earned it. That's when you need to start telling us about it, when it goes over the £1,000. And yeah, if it's become a thriving little business, as you were saying, a lot of people did this through lockdown. I think started little hobbies, baking cupcakes, selling this, that, and the other, and they've turned into thriving little businesses. That at the time they set them up, they didn't need to think about things like tax. But once you're getting over that £1,000 a year mark, that's when you need to start looking into it.
So certainly worthwhile having the conversation. And again, if somebody is already on a self-assessment and they hadn't considered this to be part of their scheme, they need to sort of add in again that profitability, because they're probably already doing accounts anyway, so they know what they can and can't include, and so they can take off their expenses, but they certainly need to show what their profit and potentially loss would be.
That's it. It's about logging everything, isn't it? It's keeping a spreadsheet or whatever you want to do. Some people use different systems. That's entirely up to them, or you might want to pay an accountant to do it for you. It's your choice. But yeah, keeping a log of everything that you've got, what's going in, what's going out, and building your self-assessment tax return from that. And there's a lot of help actually on gov.uk. If you search self-assessment, there's not just the guides of what how you fill in a self-assessment, but we've also got a YouTube channel. HMRC Gov UK is our YouTube channel, and there are videos on there that talk you through a self-assessment. I know I find it easier to repair a kitchen tap by watching a YouTube video on how to do it. And it's the same for many people for self-assessment. So HMRC Gov.uk. gov.uk. Lots of help on YouTube and, of course, the main gov.uk site.
So check out the details there, see how it affects you, what you need to let on and tell about, because it's better to have said and then be found out later on. And this point going forward, it is if you've done more than 30 transactions in a year, that is the point at which it'll start to at least highlight somebody to the HMRC via the reporting that each of these websites are doing.
That's it. So if you're making over 30 transactions in a year, or you cross that total of €2,000 in a year, then that information will come across to HMRC. So yeah, if you're running a business and you're making a fortune online and haven't been telling HMRC about it, then that information is going to be, well, we could request it anyway, so it'll just be reported automatically to HMRC.
Certainly, if it's something you're just starting up, again, get that information in there and let HMRC know, I'm just starting this. There's no need to look back at my history. And of course, you'll decide whether you need to or not.
I'm sure the teams will. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Simon Morykin from HMRC, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all those details. Obviously, what is the one main website people should start at if they have got any queries to do with tax?
Always go to gov.uk. You'll find a wealth of information in there from all sorts, from your self-assessment to all the other bits and bobs that tax covers. It's always worth going straight online. There's a digital assistant as well if you've got any questions, and that YouTube channel as well, HMRC gov.uk. Some very helpful video guides there on doing self-assessment and other bits and bobs for you there too.
Yeah, and it's all about playing fair. It is an even playing field for everybody. We're all governed by the same rules. So it is important to make sure we are paying what we should be to ensure that we don't get picked up on it later on. Simon Morykin, HMRC, once again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
That's your lot for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Back with episode 765 next week. I'll see you then. Ta-ra for now.
Goodbye from the milk bar. 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 Yeah. Goodbye from the milk bar.